This is your News Source Evening Bulletin for today, Monday, the 22nd day of June in the year 2020. I'm Gordon Mosley. Here's what we're tracking tonight. In a majority decision this afternoon, the Court of Appeal, after ruling that it has jurisdiction to hear the election declaration matter taken before it by Sophia resident Eslyn David, determined that the words "more votes than," as stated in the Constitution, is interpreted to mean more valid votes. The ruling has effectively thrown the issue back to the Guyana Elections Commission to determine the issue of credibility, as set out in the elections recount order, using valid votes. Appeal Court judges Don Gregory and Brasington Reynolds both agreed on the interpretation of more votes cast to mean more valid votes. The other Appeal Court judge, Rishi Prasad, established that in his view the court did not have jurisdiction to hear and determine the matter. Justice Prasad said the court action, in his opinion, was misconceived, and that's why he decided to strike the matter out completely.
Stark difference in context. The issues raised here, to my mind, is not concerned with the interpretation of the Constitution. Those issues fall squarely within the exclusive jurisdiction of the High Court, under and by virtue of Article 163b(1). The unlawfulness or otherwise of an act or omission is clearly a matter for the Elections Court. In the circumstances and for the brief reasons given, I find that this notice of motion is wholly misconceived and is accordingly struck out for want of jurisdiction.
But Appeal Court Justice Brasington Reynolds, in his ruling, noted that the Elections Commission has the responsibility to look at both qualitative and quantitative assessments in its determination of the final credible vote count. Justice Brasington said that would be in keeping with the gazetted order that facilitated the recount.
Accordingly, I find that GCOM did have or does have a responsibility to determine the final credible count of the results. It would be reasonable to presume that that final credible count would require both a quantitative and qualitative assessment of reports and the summary of observations submitted to the Commission in compliance with Order 60 of 2020.
President of the Court, Justice Dawn Gregory, in her assessment and ruling in determining more votes cast means more valid votes, said the court has interpretation jurisdiction and was therefore within its right to offer the interpretation of the words sought by the applicant.
All that this court can determine is whether it ought to place such an interpretation on Article 177(4). So it is important to make that point, that the court simply has the jurisdiction under 177(4), that interpretation jurisdiction, which relates back to Article 177(2)(b), to read the words as meaning valid votes cast, if more valid votes are cast. So in effect, my order is similar. It's the same as the order of Mr. Justice Reynolds.
All of the other orders sought by the applicant were refused. The Court of Appeal, however, has placed a stay on its ruling for 3 days. The court action was filed last week by Sophia resident Eslyn David, who was concerned that the Guyana Elections Commission was moving to declare the elections without taking into account and acting on the anomalies uncovered during the vote recount. More news coming up in a moment.
We all want to stay in touch, right? Now, even more than ever before. So to keep your connection strong, GTT is going 2 for 2. Combine GTT mobile and home internet services and we'll give you 2 gigs of free mobile data each month. With 2 GTT services, you're fully connected at home and on the go. Visit us online at gtt.co.gy/2for2 to learn more and start doing more with 2 for 2 from GTT. Stay safe, stay strong, Guyana. We're in this together.
GBTI is your Guyanese bank, a bank that understands every customer's unique needs, opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. At GBTI, we see you for you. Whether you're buying a new home or car, planning your next vacation or retirement, saving for your child's future, or whether you're ready to take that bold step of investing in your dream business idea, we are with you every step of the way. We hear your stories and watch you focus on your dreams as we share your aspirations. We are more than just banking. We are a family. We are part of your community. Our commitment extends way beyond the walls of our branches and is demonstrated every day in the opportunities we provide to our individual and business customers. The support, time, and commitment we give back to communities across Guyana to help improve the lives of our Guyanese families. Because we see Guyana through your eyes.
The following is an important message from the Ministry of Public Health. Getting your workplace ready for COVID-19. Surfaces such as desks, tables, and telephones with keyboards must be wiped with disinfectant regularly, or at least every few hours. Use containers of hand sanitizers and place them in prominent places around the workplace. Provide access to places where staff can wash their hands with soap and water, and promote regular hand washing at the workplace. The Ministry of Public Health has a hotline to provide information on the coronavirus. Members of the public can call 227-4986 or 624-3067.
Welcome back. The incumbent APNU-AFC administration this afternoon welcomed the Court of Appeal decision and said it has been vindicated in its position that a recount should focus on valid votes and the credibility of votes as contemplated by the recount order. APNU-AFC Executive Aubrey Norton.
Votes cast should be interpreted as valid and credible votes. It is also obvious that they saw the Order 60 of 2020 as having force, and that GCOM should have been guided by the order.
In a statement, the APNU-AFC said from the inception of the ongoing process, it has maintained that elections cannot be arbitrary and results cannot be based on fraudulent and illegitimate votes. It said elections with proven illegitimate and defective votes bring into question the credibility of those votes and cannot be foisted upon the people of Guyana.
You cannot go to a recount and then treat the recount as if it had no meaning. You had to deal with the letter and spirit of the law. And then one looks at that, it seemed almost obvious that you had to consider the observation report and that you had to separate votes that are not valid from votes that are valid. And I believe we are at the point where the chief elections officer has clear direction from the court, that the court has ruled that one, they had jurisdiction. Two, the interpretation of votes cast must be valid votes cast. And I believe that has paved the way for a proper declaration. And so we await the next steps from the Ghana Elections Commission.
Based on the recount of votes, the APNU-AFC maintains that the recount process clearly proved that tens of thousands of votes cannot be deemed as credible or valid, having been affected by instances of fraud, discrepancies, and anomalies. The party highlighted instances of votes impersonation, missing ballots, unstamped ballots, missing poll books, missing oaths of identity, and unsigned oaths of identity, more ballots than electors found in ballot boxes, among other grave issues. The coalition has now issued a call on the Ghana Elections Commission to do its duty and complete its work to ensure that credible results for the March 2nd elections are declared based on the valid votes that were cast. On the other side, the General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party, Bharat Jagdeo, while expressing disappointment with the ruling of the Court of Appeal this afternoon, said the Elections Commission has already determined the valid votes in the elections, and he believes it is time for the Commission to move ahead with its declaration.
Valid votes. When validity of the votes have already been determined and they have been recorded in all the statutory forms. So there's nothing that stops a declaration at this point in time. No court ruling, no court order, and they can't take away the powers of the commission and give it vested with it low and feel or in Congress place. In a majority ruling this afternoon, the Court of Appeal determined that the words more votes than as stated in the Constitution of Guyana are interpreted to mean more valid votes, and the Elections Commission by its own order will have to establish credibility of the elections based on valid votes. Mr. Jagdeo said while the ruling does not change much, his lawyers are looking at taking the matter to the Caribbean Court of Justice, which he believes has jurisdiction to hear an appeal. About whether this will end up at the CCJ or not, We know that the CCJ has jurisdiction on this matter. We believe that even this ruling will be set aside, but the ruling itself has not injuncted or prevented, or does not prevent GCOM from making a declaration now on the basis of what they had already determined, and on the basis of the total valid votes, and on the basis of all of these reports.
Jagdeo said he maintains that there is nothing preventing a declaration to be made by the Elections Commission right now. He also lashed out at the APNU-AFC coalition, claiming that it has been misleading its supporters while attempting to hold on to power. Well, 1 week before the International Court of Justice begins its hearings on the Guyana-Venezuela border issue, the government of Venezuela has restated its position that it will not be taking part in the hearing, since it does not recognize the International Court of Justice as having any jurisdiction to hear the matter. In a statement over the weekend, Venezuela instead offered an invitation to Guyana to restart negotiations with the purpose of reaching an amicable and acceptable arrangement. The Venezuelan position is not new, and in the past it has stated that it believes that the two countries meeting could agree to restart the UN Good Offices process. But since taking the case to the ICJ, Guyana has said that the UN Good Offices process has been exhausted. Guyana is seeking to obtain a final and binding judgment from the court that the 1899 arbitral award, which established the location of the land boundary between then British Guyana and Venezuela, remains valid and binding, and that Guyana's Essequibo region belongs to Guyana and not Venezuela. In a letter to the court, Venezuela has claimed that the Secretary General of the United Nations has exceeded his authority under the Geneva Agreement, and that the court therefore lacks jurisdiction to adjudicate Guyana's lawsuit. The court is expected to proceed to decide if it has jurisdiction over Guyana's claims, irrespective of whether or not Venezuela participates in the proceedings. If it decides that it has jurisdiction, the court will proceed to rule on the merits of those claims and decide whether the validity of the 1899 arbitral award and the border between the two states should be confirmed. Under the United Nations Charter and the court's own rules, its final judgments both on jurisdiction and the merits will be legally binding on Guyana and Venezuela, whether or not Venezuela participates in the proceedings. Turning now to health matters, the situation in Region 1 with regards to the spread of the coronavirus in the Maruca sub-district is becoming especially worrying for health officials. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Shamdev Prasad revealed today that there are 21 new cases of the disease, taking the total number of active cases to 90. A total of 103 persons have made full recoveries.
As of the 22nd of June 2020, of the 39 tests done, there have been 21 new cases. The total number of confirmed cases is now 205, and the number of COVID deaths remain at 12. We're happy to announce that 103 persons have recovered to date. In institutional isolation, we now have 90 cases and 24 cases in institutional quarantine. There is no patient in the COVID ICU. We have conducted 2,147 tests so far, with 1,942 being negative.
News source has learned that 18 of the 21 new cases of the coronavirus are from the Region 1 sub-district of Maruca, which already had more than 20 other cases. The Chief Medical Officer in his report this afternoon issued a warning to residents in the bordering communities with Brazil, Venezuela and Suriname, as all three of those countries have seen a skyrocketing of cases, with Brazil having the second highest number of cases in the world.
We wish to remind you of the runaway situation in neighboring Brazil that has climbed to the position of being the second country in the world to have reported cases, with an alarming high number of deaths registered. Residents in regions number 1, 7, 8, and 9, you're extremely vulnerable because of this situation and need to be vigilant. Stop all cross-border movement and migrant persons entering your community. Region 9 have reported another positive case, which is testimony to our call for you to be on your guard.
Dr. Prasad said Guyana continues to see an increase in cases rather than a reduction, and this situation remains the same as the country begins a gradual reopening. Men remain the most affected in Guyana. Persons between the ages of 20 and 29 have become the new high-risk group in the country. 3 persons, including a young police officer, lost their lives in 2 separate accidents in the Essequibo region yesterday. The first accident occurred at around 1:35 yesterday afternoon at Land of Plenty Public Road on the Essequibo coast. 25-year-old Police Sergeant Lekhan Persad died in that accident. A police statement explained that a young policeman was driving at a fast rate when he lost control of his car and slammed into a number of parked vehicles before eventually coming to a stop in front of a business place. He was pulled from the mangled wreck and pronounced dead after being rushed to the Suddy Hospital. 3 hours later at Ledestin Public Road, East Bank, Essequibo, another accident occurred, this one claiming the lives of 2 persons. The 2 dead persons have been identified as 22-year-old Nigel Jones of Port Join, West Bank, Demerara, and 23-year-old Charles Scott of Samaru Dam, Port Join. Both men were riding their motorcycles as part of a bike riding crew when they crashed into a car that was traveling in the opposite direction. The driver of the car explained to police investigators that as he turned a bend in the road, he noticed the fleet of motorcycles taking up both sides of the road heading in his direction. He said he applied brakes as some of them were riding directly into him, but it was too late. One of the bikes slammed into the front of the car while the other slammed into the side of the car. The 2 riders as well as their pillion riders were pitched onto the roadway. They were all rushed to the hospital where the riders were pronounced dead, but the 2 pillion riders were admitted with various injuries. Police investigations into the 2 deadly Sunday accidents are ongoing. Across the region is coming up next.
They've made a positive impact on the heavy-duty transportation industry in Guyana since they've arrived. Guyanese are amazed at their power, durability, efficiency, and superior handling capabilities. These are brand new trucks, manufactured in partnership with German, Italian, and French companies. They have a powerful reputation for operating under very adverse Guyanese conditions and come with full after-sales service and spare parts. They're the most sought-after trucks today, with over 500 units in Guyana, and they're available in over 100 countries, including South America and the Caribbean. Be smart. Buy brand new ST Howo trucks today. Call 608-4998 and arrange for an inspection at ST Truck Guyana Incorporated, Block B, Public Road, Covenant, East Bank, Demerara.
We are legions of men standing strong, but never too proud to stoop and help someone. We must send a clear signal to all. Do right. Walk in upright ways, knowing that's what being a man is all about. And ever aware that things will only get worse when good men do nothing. Stand strong. Be the one to live right.
Hi Guyana, it's your boy Kimo Paul here. Remind you to stay at least 1 meter away from persons, or 3 feet, to avoid contracting the flu or the COVID-19. It is also important that we stay at home and to avoid gatherings of more than 5 persons. We must all play our part, so let's protect ourselves and our families from COVID-19. We must all play our part. The Ministry of Public Health cannot do this alone, so let's all come together and fight this virus.
For further information, check our website www.health.gov.gy or visit the ministry's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter page.
Across the region right now, Virgin Atlantic Airlines is scheduled to fly out of London's Heathrow Airport to Barbados on the 1st of August. Nation News reports that the airline recently announced its intention to resume service from the 20th of July, and it has added 17 destinations to the list. Commercial airlines were grounded in wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some countries closed their borders completely, while others like Barbados remained open for repatriation flights. Once regulations allow, Barbadians will be able to fly to London from the 2nd of August, and the flight to Manchester is scheduled to return in October. A massive plume of dust from the Sahara Desert is the thickest in decades to reach the Caribbean Sea. and some of the dust is expected to move into the Gulf of Mexico and parts of the U.S. later this week. Known as a Saharan air layer, the dry dust plume commonly forms from late spring into early fall and moves into the tropical Atlantic Ocean. The densest plume began to emerge off Western Africa last weekend and has now traveled over 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean to the Caribbean Sea, covering an area larger than the United States and Western Europe. Saharan dust tracks as far west as the Caribbean Sea, Florida, and the Gulf of Mexico each year, a 5,000-mile-long journey. This particular dust event is unique because of its thickness over the Caribbean Sea. And finally tonight, international news. Health officials in South Korea believe the country is going through a second wave of the coronavirus despite recording relatively low numbers. The country had been a success story in dealing with COVID-19, but now expects the pandemic to continue for months. Head of the Korea Centers for Disease Control, Jung Yoon-kyung, said the first wave lasted up until April. Yet since May, clusters of new cases have grown, including outbreaks at nightclubs in the capital of Seoul. Between those periods, daily confirmed cases had fallen from nearly 1,000 to 0 infections, recorded for 3 days in a row. Officials on Monday said that over the last 24 hours, 70 new infections had been recorded from different clusters in large offices and warehouses. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting.